Facebook land. This is Jo, and this is Private Practice. Welcome to Tuesday afternoon. We made it to Tuesday. It has been extremely hot here today. My hair is also showing you that it has been somewhat dry, and we've got less moisture in the hair than sometimes we have. I thought it was a lot of humidity today, but no, it's just been really dry. What's incredibly lovely is in the last half an hour or so, we've had a 10-degree temperature drop, and it's actually starting to become quite pleasant. We had rain earlier, but all it's done is made things muddy. Hasn't smeared mud and stuff everywhere. It's not from torrential rain, from just a few drops of rain. Hello, Priscilla, welcome. So I won't lie, I am feeling a little fatigued in my head today. And I thought it was a good time to actually talk about this thing called cognitive fatigue, because many of us are experiencing it, and it turns up in some pretty insidious ways. And we often try and push through and ignore it, or we start thinking that there is something seriously wrong with our brains. So I've had many clients come to me, both practice building clients and clinical clients come to me, who talk about this brain fog, or what I know to be cognitive fatigue. And what they're trying to explain to me is that it just doesn't feel like their brain is working right. And then that brings up all sorts of catastrophizing thoughts around, is there something organically wrong with my brain, especially for people post-cancer or people who have had some other chronic health issue. But cognitive fatigue is going to turn up when you use your brain a lot. I know that should go without saying, but I don't think a lot of us as clinicians realize how much we use our brain every single day. So our brain does lots of different things. It is automatically helping us breathe, stay upright. We've got blood pumping around our bodies. It's getting us ready to fight or flight if we're going to be threatened or some way. So it's got these activities going on that we're not even conscious of. So it's kind of using energy, and there's parts of the brain that are doing that. Then there is this data filing center. And now these are Jo's ways of explaining brain function I'm not trying to be a neuroscientist here, but we have the data filing center, which is where like our neural pathways are so well worn, our brain sees something, it registers what it is. Like you see the white wall behind me now and you register, oh, that's Jo on a video. Or you see a coffee cup in my hand and you go, Jo, that's on a video. You don't even consciously say those words to yourself. Those pictures start making sense of what you're seeing. So we have this data storage filter that's going on, and we're getting back into this thing all the time. Every time you see a client and it feels like second nature or your intuition that tells you what to say or do with that client, you're actually drawing on past experiences there, and this is coming from your data filing center. So there's a lot of energy going on there. And if you are actually thinking, if you are actually sitting there attending, listening to somebody, problem solving with somebody, writing a blog post, Jill Johnson Young, hello. Oh, I must have known you were going to come on here today. If you are attending to someone, if you are listening to lots of words, if you're trying to formulate opinion, if you're trying to help somebody learn a new skill, if you're trying to learn a new skill yourself, if you're trying to be creative, if you're trying to remember things, if you're trying to work out where the heck you put your keys, then we've actually just moved into the front part of our brain here, which isn't a particularly big part of our brain, but I tell you what, it is the most energy inefficient part of our brain. It is where I think 80% of this energy that's needed for our brain actually comes from this frontal part of our brain here. So when we get cognitively fatigued, it's the thinking, the planning, all of that sort of stuff that's going to go first. You find it a little sluggish. You find it hard to concentrate. You're easily distracted. What are the other behaviors I've had going on today? Oh, the avoidance of things that felt hard. I had to stop writing. I was writing with a client today, and every word had a red wiggly line under it. Like it was bad spelling from hell. And that shows you that I'm not able to focus on what's going on. I try to multitask that's not going to happen. I'll go to another part of the office and completely forget while I'm there. So all of those processes that we take for second nature start to slow down. And it's not necessarily a sign that there is something bad or that there is something wrong, but it is a sign of fatigue. And what concerns me is that many of us are pushing and pushing and pushing to keep, and we think that we've just got to keep going. And it's like if you work out a muscle to the point of exhaustion, or do they call that in the gym, failure? If you try and do that with your brain, it's bad. Just putting it there. We don't want our brains to fail. Now, I'm not suggesting for a moment that we can overwork our brains to the point where they can fail. I actually don't know. I hope not. I don't want to test that theory. I don't want anybody watching this to test that theory. But what I do want you to take notice of is if you're finding you're struggling to work out what word needs to come out of your mouth, or if you've gone to a task and you realize that it's the second, third, fourth, 11th time you've tried to do that task, if you're wandering around in a circle, if you're finding yourself avoidant, then it's possibly time that your brain needs a break. And if you're like me and you kind of have those days in your week where you've got back-to-back clients, hey, Jill Johnson Young, but chances are by the time we've seen the fifth, sixth, maybe the third, in my case today, client, my brain's tired. I give 100% attention when I'm with somebody. I'm often listening to what they're saying, thinking about where we've got to go, refining the thing that we're working on at the moment, making sure that we're all headed in the one direction. That's a lot of stuff for my brain to take in. Health professionals, we are risk managers all the time. So we can't sit in front of a client without assessing risk. It is what we friggin' do. Excuse me. So you can't help it. You're going to sit there and go, what does this person need? How do I help this person stay safe? How do I help this person feel safe? So you might be having a conversation about a traumatic event, or the fact that their ankle is swollen, or the fact that they fell out of bed this morning. But really what you're starting to do is you're having that conversation over this side of your mouth, but this side of your brain is going, how do I help them go home in a way that's safe? So why am I talking about this today? Because cognitive fatigue is real. And if you haven't experienced it, then you haven't worked hard enough. What a Generation X thing to say. No, then lucky you. Lucky you. You are going to experience it, because it will get to the point where you find what your limits are, because you're human. Welcome to the human race. So what are some simple things you can do? You need to stop using your brain for a while. So if you've got clients back to back, do something with your body. Go for a walk, go up and down stairs a couple of times. My fabulous son today decided that crunches and push-ups in the office were a good suggestion for putting movement back into his body. I don't necessarily agree with that. If you want to see me doing a push-up, that could be kind of hilarious. But you've got to actually do something that's not engaging your brain. So you don't want to be on a screen. That is a lot of therapists of all disciplines will go from working really intensely with a client to doing something really intensely on the screen. Don't do that. In fact, you need to get out of that space. Breathe in some fresh air. Just do something that uses your body or uses your emotions. So have a good belly laugh, listen to some great music, have a conversation with somebody, not a messenger. I'm suggesting that we need to give the intensity of that screen a bit of a break. So there's lots of reading and resources around for cognitive fatigue. Unfortunately, a lot of that is directed towards people who've had a stroke and people who've had a brain injury. We'd expect people who've had an injury to their brain to actually have some level of fatigue. You break your bone, while it's healing, it's fatiguing. What I want to help us understand is that there are things that we need to put into our day, every single day, to help us be able to stay alert and active. This is not about getting more capacity out of you. If you're already seeing 7 or 8 clients a day, this is not about getting you to 9 or 10. This is about making sure that the 6th and the 7th and the 8th get the services that they're paying for, and you can feel good about the work that you're doing. It also means that by the time you get to a Friday afternoon, you've got energy left over for your weekend. That is the thing that I'm working on at the moment. I want to make sure that I have energy left over for the weekend. Jill, you are completely right. Jill's also letting us know that if you're going through grief, you will end up with cognitive fatigue. I cannot tell you how many times my brain decided it didn't want to work when I was grieving around my dad. And it's interesting because I've had some resurgence of some of those grief experiences coming along lately. So we're 8 months after the event. So obviously I'm a little bit slow in some of the things. It's a part of my grief process. Kelsey, you are right. Burnout is bad. Sophie and I were talking about that today. If you have truly burnt out once, you won't let yourself go back there again. You will do everything you can, and you probably become a little bit avoidant to make sure you don't ever enter that space. When you're burnt out, your brain doesn't want to work. It actually shuts down. This is what I have discovered. Your brain will actually shut down, like your emotions, so that you actually become numb. So we've got all sorts of other behaviors that turn up when we're burnt out. So I am talking about way before we've addressed burnout or gotten anywhere close. So I want you to think about today is, how are you pacing yourself? Being able to pace yourself during your workday is incredibly important. Cramming as many clients in is not the answer. You need to break that up with writing your notes. You need to break that up with going for a walk, getting some sunshine, talking to a human being, not a machine, getting on the treadmill. If you're a physical therapist, a physiotherapist, can you use some of that equipment for yourself? Can you write your notes while you're bouncing on the ball? Don't quite know how that works. Just had a thought. Maybe you could dictate them. There we go. But there's always something we can do to help our brain switch off and take a break. My message to you today is, please don't underestimate how hard you are asking your brain to work every single day whenever you are trying to do something with a client. I want to make sure that we are healthy enough to keep doing this work. It's important to me. It's important for me to know that you are going to still be doing this work in 5 years' time. All right, I think I have ended my sermon well today. Thank you for everybody who turned up. I hope this is useful. I'm looking forward to talking to you. Let's see if we can make this happen 3 days in a row tomorrow. Let's give it a go. I wonder what's going to happen. Bye. Go be your awesome self.